What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jimmy James 59, and this video is part one of a series that I will be doing on one thing. If I could make one change to each civ in AOE2 DE, what would that change be, right? So we got a new DLC very recently, the Dynasties of India. We had a lot of balance changes to existing civilizations in the last update patch. I really want to do a revised version of my 1v1 Arabia tier list, but I actually would suspect that the new Dynasties of India civilizations may see some changes because they're all very unique, and we may see changes coming to the other civilizations. So if the developers are out there listening, right, who I think have done a really nice job balancing the game. I mean, gosh, 42 civs is really tough to balance, right? But here are some ideas, because even though the game is really balanced, I do think that a lot of civilizations still probably need a little bit of work, and no civ is perfect, so we're going to be looking at that. So before I jump into that, if you like this kind of content, right, please give this video a like and follow the channel, subscribe, whatever it is that you do. Hit that town center notification bell. Yep, hit the bell here when you're in game playing out there on the ladder. I highly advise you not to ring the bell at the town center, right? But in this case, ring that bell. And if you don't do it for me, do it for the Hussars people. Anyways, with that being said, right, I'll go ahead and jump into not the tier list, right, into the list I'm going to do. I think I'm going to do 9 civs today, and I'm basically going to go 999 until we get to the last one, and then I have some ideas in the last video, but I'm going to keep that a secret. So hey, there's another reason for you to follow the channel, so you can get all those other videos and see them as soon as they come out. So without further ado, I'm going to look at the Aztecs. Now, the Aztecs are a really strong civilization. With any strong civilization, you have to be careful with how you change them. So here's my suggestion with the Aztecs. I would like to see the civilization get masonry. Masonry is a nice cheap upgrade that gives your castles more HP. Aztecs currently have the weakest castles in the game. They don't get masonry, so they don't get architecture, and they also don't get hoardings. Hoardings is a very strong tech, actually. It basically, if you watch my castle tier list video, I take a look at hoardings there, and it actually does quite a lot in terms of being able to buff the HP of castles. And I do think Aztecs, it's good to give them some weaknesses, and having bad castles is one of them. But the castles are just so bad, and the thing for me is I just don't understand why their castles are so bad, right? You know, this would be a nice little bump for their ability to take map control. I think with the recent change to longswordsmen being stronger in Castle Age, and I think even two-handed swordsmen now have 1 base melee armor. Somebody in the comment section help me out. I'm just saying that I think swordsmen are a bit stronger now against eagles, and Aztecs have jaguar warriors, and that really is often your counter because you can make them really quickly and you don't have to go through getting all the swordsman upgrades, which takes a long time. So giving them masonry in their castles would help them a bit more to deal with those really strong long swordsman plays. So Aztecs, right? Give them masonry, buff them a little bit. There's no reason their castles need to be garbage. Alright, so for the Bengalis, this is going to be a little bit of a two-part. Some of these are going to have kind of 2 parts because changing one thing means we need to change something else. And for the Bengalis, the change that I would suggest is to give them thumb ring, which means you need to change the pikes technology. I think it's pronounced pikes, right? Comment section can help me out with that too. You need to change that to something else. Let me explain. When we look at the Bengalis, they actually have a really bad win rate right now, and I think that the idea is they kind of die in that early to mid game, and so lacking knights, lacking camels, lacking crossbows without thumb ring, which is really important when, say, going up against knights, you just have to rely on some kind of strange options, and not necessarily bad options, but elephant archers are are decent in Castle Age, but I think they're really kind of an all-in play. Same with Battle Elephants, which are slow. You're probably relying in early Castle Age on crossbows, and you're really, with this civilization, you're really just trying to get to the Ratha, their unique unit. And I would like to see the civilization have a little bit of a main option that they can mass throughout, and this would give the civilization fully upgraded Arbalist, which would be not only a nice unit for their 1v1s, remember, they don't have knights, so keep that in mind. Being able to have fully upgraded Arbalist, and when your civilization doesn't have knights, doesn't seem overpowered to me. And this would also actually help them be a pretty decent pick on team game maps, and team games are really popular on the ranked ladder. I can't think of the exact statistics off the top of my head, but a lot more people play ranked team games than ranked 1v1s, and so I think we want to not only consider civilizations 1v1 performances, but also adding some variety in team games. And you're going to hear me echo that throughout, I think, a lot of these lists. Now, the trick here, though, is that if the Pike's technology is going to be changed, right, what do you do with the technology? Because right now what Pike's does is it gives 20% firing rate to Rathas and Elephant Archers, and obviously Thumb Ring is going to help the Ratha, and it's going to help the Elephant Archer. And I think it makes Bengali Elephant Archers much more playable in Castle Age, because Elephant Archers are not the most accurate, and so that would help you actually get those running. And I actually think it would slow down the Ratha a little bit if the Ratha needs to be slowed down. I'm actually not sure that it does, but you would need to build that archery range to get Thumb Ring. So, you know, putting up a castle and just spamming Ratha all over the place, getting the Pikes upgrade there, I don't know, maybe that needs to be nerfed a bit, because the Ratha, I think, is a really, really strong unit. So now, okay, what do you change the Pike's technology to? I'd like to see something, staying with their archer line here, maybe give their archers something like +2 melee armor, right? What that would do is that would make them a very strong civilization to hit and run knights, and that would keep them generic against other archer civs. So that means that it doesn't really affect their sort of ranking among archer civilizations, so they're still going to get probably outclassed by, you know, like Britons, Mayans, Vietnamese, Ethiopians, you know the usual suspects. But against knights, which I think can be a real problem with this civ, giving the crossbows a little bit more melee armor, allowing them to survive a little bit more hit and run, I think it could actually make them a very strong civilization. And so, because you'd need a castle to get it, to me, it doesn't seem overpowered. It probably depends on about how much melee armor you give them. I think +2 sounds kind of nice, but maybe it could be +3. That's something that would probably need to be balanced. But that would be my basic idea for the Bengalis. All right, the Berbers. This is what I've heard from some other places, and I really like it. I think you change the Berber team bonus and make kasbah their team bonus, which is currently their Castle Age unique technology, right? It increases the work rate of yours and your allied castles. Just let that be the team bonus. Allowing genitors to go to be trained by your teammates, to me, seems useless in most team games anyways, because genitors are a very uncommon unit to see. Maybe some exceptions, like some your more unusual closed maps, or maybe some strange mega random shenanigans, I don't know. But I think in general, right, giving them a more useful team bonus would help them be picked more, because they're actually a pretty nice pocket civ with cheaper knights, cheaper camels, but they don't have paladins, and that can be kind of a bummer in team games when you go late. So this is something that would help the Berbers out quite a bit, and also make them picked more as a pocket civ. Now, this of course leads us to, okay, well, what should their Castle Age technology be? And I'd actually like to look on the water for the Berbers. The Berbers have a pretty strong navy in that their ships all move faster, but they're missing one critical technology, shipwright, right, that reduces the wood cost on ships. And I actually think it increases the work rate of docks too. Again, that's another thing for you guys to check me out in the comments. You know, I don't have all these things memorized off the top of my head. But I think for the Berbers, what I'd like to see is, let's see them get some kind of a, you know, I don't know, 15, 20, maybe even 25% gold cost discount on their fast fire ships. this would make them kind of a fast fire ship specialist since they're already pretty fast, and there are a lot of other civs that are water civs that have strong ranged units like the Portuguese or the Viking longship, the Dravidians now with the Thrisadi, or sometimes people call it the Thirsty Boy. There's a lot of nice ranged units there, so being able to have a really fast fire ship, right, being able to get out there and try to counter some of those, I think would be really cool. And remember, a lot of those stronger water civilizations don't really have strong upgrades there. Vikings miss the entire fire galley line. I don't think Portuguese get the final upgrade to the fire ship, so this would help Berbers a lot against other water civs and might make them be picked more on the more water heavy maps. And right now there's really only a handful of civs that tend to get picked, so it'd be nice to see a little bit more variety. So next up we have the Bohemians, and Bohemians I think are a really strong civilization. What I'd like to see actually with them is a little bit of a nerf to give their Hussite Wagons a minimum range of 1, right? I think this unit can be pretty tough to deal with because it's really only countered by siege weapons, and there's already a precedent for a lot of siege weapons to have a minimum range, right? Mangonels do, the organ gun, right, of the Portuguese has a minimum range, and so I think there's precedent here, but what I like about this is that the Hussite Wagon, one of its real claims to fame is that if you put units behind it, it reduces damage that gets to them. So if you have halberdiers hiding behind a Hussite Wagon that get attacked by crossbows or arbalists, they're not going to do as much damage. And what I like about this is that if there's a minimum range in the Hussite Wagons, then Bohemian players will need to not just spam Hussite Wagons into somebody's economy, right? But also have units roll out on the field with it, because if it gets swarmed by like light cav, it's actually going to struggle. And I think that would make the unit play the way the developers seem to intend for it. I don't think it would be a major nerf or anything like that, but I do think it would force you to play a little bit differently, play a more complete game, and in general, I think I like to see units have a little bit of weaknesses and so need to rely on other parts of their army, and Bohemians already get really strong halberdiers with extra bonus damage, so I think it would force you to play the civilization the way it seems to be meant to. Alright, the Britons, somewhere out there, the please nerf Britons guy is stirring around, right? He has a sense that something is afoot in the universe, and we're going to look at Britons here, and here's my suggestion. My suggestion here is that the archery range working faster team bonus becomes only a civilization bonus and doesn't apply to allies. I think that there's even an argument for nerfing the speed to something like 10 to 15% personally, but I think that for me the more important thing is that it not be a team bonus. And here is why, because Britons are insanely overpowered in team games, and there's really two problems here, and one I think is fine and the other needs to be dealt with. The fact that Britons get extra range in Castle and Imperial Age allows them to dictate virtually every fight. That I don't think is quite as big of a deal because it's counteracted by missing Thumb Ring, which gives them a lower DPS, and so while it's a really nice advantage, it is counterbalanced by something. The thing that really is the problem that needs to be addressed is that with this team bonus, as it stands, Britons and their teammates can now easily outmass your flanks in archer production if you don't select a Briton teammate. And that's counteracted by virtually nothing, only if you make sure that you have a Britons player on your team. That not only makes Britons insane to deal with in Feudal Age, but really throughout the entire game, but when somebody else on the flank goes something like Ethiopians and Mayans, which have very strong archers that do have Thumb Ring, all of a sudden they have perhaps one of the Britons' strongest bonuses. And so all of a sudden you're having to deal with super Ethiopians or super Mayans or super Vietnamese. And I think that is really mental. I think it makes team game flank play really repetitive because you know that you are going to have to select a Briton player. And I think that even though this would change team game meta in a lot of ways, it would do so in a way that makes things more competitive, right? And there's a little bit of precedent, I think, for this because The Aztec military production bonus, I believe, used to be 15%. They nerfed it to 10 because it was just so insanely strong. So if they can do that to the Aztecs, I think we can look at the Britons' archery range production bonus too. The thing about archers is that they're just too cheap and too easy to mass for this bonus, and it just allows you to get way too many numbers, and quantity is sometimes its own quality, and it makes them very difficult to deal with. Now, for the Britons, what do we do to replace that team bonus? Here's one, let me see how you think about it, right? What if we give them a team bonus that palisade walls grant +2 line of sight, right? Again, if we're nerfing something in a team bonus, it would be good to give a useful team bonus as well. And I like the idea of basically getting a free town watch for your walls, because that will give you advance warning for not just you, but also your teammates when enemies are on your doorstep. And that's very helpful. And so it will also help out your cavalry player quite a bit, so that way they can get walled up to get all the farms to get their scout production going. And I think it fits some of the other archer civilizations. The Mayans have a wall bonus for cheaper walls. Ethiopians have a vision bonus for tower and outpost. So I'm kind of merging those two together a little bit. And I think it makes sense given the current civilizations. All right, Bulgarians. So with Bulgarians, my suggestion with them is to give them ring archer armor. Look, we already lost one civilization that had fully upgraded heavy cav archers, right? The formerly known Indians, now that they've been renamed the Hindustanis. They've also lost Parthian tactics. I'd like to see another fully upgraded heavy cav archer civ be brought back into the fold, right? But there's another reason for this as well. I think that the Bulgarians profile along similar civilizations on two fronts. The first is the Spanish, right? If Bulgarians get ring archer armor, they'd have fully upgraded elite skirmishers, fully upgraded halberdiers, and hussars that actually do even more bonus damage. And not only that, but they also have a blacksmith upgrade that allows their blacksmith to work faster and negates the half of the food cost on their upgrades. This really profiles them a lot like the Spanish, who similarly, they're the only civilization with perfect trash units. They also lack the crossbowman line, like the Bulgarians, and so that gives them a lot of similarities there, to where I don't think it would be that strong and that crazy for Bulgarians to also have a sort of perfect trash unit tech tree like the Spanish do. And the Bulgarians and the Spanish also both have blacksmith bonuses as well. Now, the other civ that this reminds me of a bit is the Magyars. And both the Bulgarians and Magyars really lack for strong eco bonuses and often need to play aggressively to have their discounts pay off. They both do have blacksmith bonuses, and the Magyars actually get heavy cav archers that are fully upgraded and get an additional insanely strong technology. So giving the Bulgarians fully upgraded heavy cav archers, I think, would be in line with some of the other civs in the game in terms of the bonuses that the civ has, and also would just make that another line of units to play into. And given that you lack crossbowmen, well, that's something that would be useful for Bulgarians to address. Alright, so we have the Burgundians, and I think this one's going to be a bit more predictable. I think we got to change the Flemish Revolution. It's a little out of hand. It just doesn't feel like it's in keeping with the game. And so what do we change it to? Well, I'd like to see halberdiers getting +4 attack, and the tech still unlock the Flemish militia. Let's make them available. This is like getting Garland Wars for the Aztecs, but only for your halberdiers. Now, of course, you might think, well, Jimmy, that's just a weaker version of Garland Wars. But the thing you got to remember about the Aztecs is that Aztecs don't even get the halberdier upgrade. So the fact that Burgundians do get halberdiers and they're getting extra attack, that does make it actually quite different from the Aztecs and would really give them a nice bonus in Trash Wars. Now, Flemish Militia can still be a more population efficient choice, still be useful as a trash buster, but you'd have the halbs there. I think this would give the civ a really nice quality, especially given that your hussars are kind of mediocre and your skirmishers are kind of mediocre. Having a strong trash unit would be nice for the civilization to have in the late game. Burmese, and this is a bit of a tricky one. I think a lot of people view the Burmese as a civilization that's quite weak. They have pretty strong elephants, but that's a really tough unit to get to. Now, the Burmese really struggle against archers, and I think profile is more of a melee civilization. And so what I'd like to see with the Burmese is something kind of modest, but I think will help them out, where let's give them something like +5 or maybe 10 HP on their stable units in Castle Age, and then another +5 or 10 for their stable units in Imperial Age. Maybe you could do +5 in Castle and then 10 in Imperial Age. I don't exactly have the numbers worked out, but something along those lines. That would give them really strong cavaliers, but would still probably fall behind civilizations that do have paladins, but probably be more in line with something like Sicilians, or maybe Bulgarians, and maybe Farimba Cavaliers of the Malians. I think that would put them in about that tier, and it would make their hussars really strong. And you gotta remember, the civilization has skirmishers that are basically unusable. You do get great halberdiers, but I think giving the hussars a little bit of a bump wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It's already kind of a weak civ to begin with, and so to keep in line with that melee heavy style, giving them a bump here, I don't see that as a terrible thing. And another 10 or 15 HP on elephants, that's not going to matter much anyway, so it's not really going to affect their elephant play. All right, our last civilization in this list is going to be the Byzantines, and I'd like to see the Greek fire technology changed. Greek fire gives their fire ships +1 range. My understanding is actually that this is kind of a nerf, because I think it makes the fire attack less accurate. Maybe somebody can correct me on that. But to me, the reason to change it is that I think Greek fire is already, like, the historical value of it is already incorporated in the civilization bonus, because your fire ships attack faster. So to me, it just seems kind of redundant. What I'd replace it with is I'd allow destroyed warships to refund some percentage of their cost. And wood or gold, maybe just wood, maybe wood and gold, I don't know. Let's just say 33% of their cost to throw a number. This would be a really nice bonus, because ships do get destroyed a lot on water maps, and resources are very important. Byzantines don't really get an eco bonus, and so I think that they tend to fall behind some of the other water civs, even though they have a full water tech tree. They have a nice bonus to their fast fire ships, but given the eco that the top civs like Vikings, Italians, and Portuguese get, I think this would be kind of rough on the Byzantines. So having this technology would allow them to get some extra savings in the late game, and that way when games do go longer, and games on islands often do, then that would give Byzantines a bit more resources to allow them to compete against some of those really strong civilizations on the water that do have really good eco bonuses and strong tech trees. And that's it, right? Those are the first, I believe, 9 civilizations, right? And that's the one thing I'd change about each civ. Sometimes that means it changes another thing, but that's okay. And I'd be curious what you think about the civilizations. I see these posts on Reddit all the time where people talk about changing the civs. If you have any ideas for these civilizations, right? Throw it in the comment section below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think I'm nuts? At the end of the day, it's all just my opinion. I have no idea if I'm right, not claiming to be, just kind of how I see things. Do any of these seem overpowered? Do they seem still kind of underpowered? Etc., right? And if you're thinking about some of the other civilizations, hold off on that, right? Because I'm going to get these videos cranked out, so you're going to have your chance there. But with that, I'm Jimmy James 59, and I'll see you guys out there on the ladder. Peace.